Lena had always been taller than everyone else in her village. People jokingly called her the giant bride. Not because she was actually a giant, but because she stood almost a head taller than most men in town. At first, the name bothered her. But with time she learned to smile and ignore it. Still, deep inside, she always wished people would see more than her height. She wished they would look at her heart instead of her size. She grew up on the edge of a small ranching town where everyone knew everyone. Her family owned a modest farm, and for years she helped her father with the animals. She was strong, hardworking, and kind. She never complained and never caused problems. But people always treated her as if she was different, unusual, or strange. No one knew how sensitive she actually was, how easily her feelings were hurt, or how much she longed for someone to truly understand her. Everything changed the day she met Cole, a quiet rancher who had moved to town to take over his late uncle's ranch. Cole was known as a calm, serious man who rarely spoke more than necessary. He wasn't unfriendly, just private. People respected him because he worked hard and kept to himself. Some even feared him a little, not because he was dangerous, but because he carried himself with a certain intensity. The first time Lena met Cole was at the farmer's market. She was lifting a heavy crate of vegetables when one of the boxes slipped and almost crushed her foot. Cole stepped in without a word, grabbed the crate with one hand, and steadied it with surprising gentleness. Lena looked up at him, expecting him to make a joke about her height like others often did. Instead, he just nodded politely and said, "You okay?" It was the first time in years someone had spoken to her without judgment. That simple moment stayed in her mind for days. She didn't know why, but something about him felt different, safe, steady, honest. Weeks passed, and she saw him more often. Sometimes at the market, sometimes on the road, and occasionally at the feed store. They didn't talk much, but whenever they did, Lena felt unusually nervous, yet happy. Cole wasn't talkative, but he listened. He noticed things other people ignored. He didn't laugh at her height, didn't comment on it, didn't treat her like she was strange. He treated her like she was simply a person. One afternoon, her father asked her to deliver some supplies to Cole's ranch. She felt a flutter in her stomach but agreed. When she reached the ranch, Cole was fixing a broken fence. He wiped sweat from his forehead, gave her a small smile, and thanked her for bringing the supplies. That day, they ended up talking longer than ever before. They talked about ranch life, the weather, the animals, and everything in between. Cole spoke softly, but every word felt sincere. After that day, Lena found herself visiting his ranch more often, sometimes with an excuse, sometimes without one. Cole didn't seem to mind. In fact, he slowly began opening up. He told her about his life, his struggles, his dreams of restoring the ranch. He even let her help with some of the animals. Lena felt a sense of peace around him, a feeling she had never experienced before. People in town started to notice. They whispered, made comments, and teased her. Some warned her that Cole was too serious, too distant, too unpredictable. But Lena didn't listen. She saw something in him others didn't. One evening, while helping him move a restless young horse into the barn, Lena felt sudden pain in her shoulder. The horse jerked unexpectedly, and the rope pulled her arm sharply. She tried to hide the pain, but Cole noticed instantly. He stepped toward her, his face filled with concern. "Stop," he said gently. "You're hurt." Lena shook her head, trying to act strong. But the pain grew worse. Cole took her hand carefully and guided her to sit down. The moment she relaxed, pain shot through her shoulder, and she couldn't hold back a small cry. "This is too much for today," he said softly. "Please stop before you make it worse." His voice wasn't loud, it wasn't angry. But the seriousness in his tone surprised her. His concern felt real, almost overwhelming. She felt embarrassed for showing weakness. But he didn't judge her. He didn't make her feel small or strange. Instead, he supported her gently, almost protectively. Later, when he drove her home to make sure she was safe, someone from town saw them together. and in a place where rumors spread like wildfire. It was only a matter of hours before people began talking. Some said Cole was acting strangely protective. Others said he was hiding something. A few even claimed something dangerous was happening on his ranch. By morning, half the town was whispering. No one knew the truth. No one knew the pain Lena was hiding. And no one knew what Cole was truly capable of, not even Lena, but they were about to find out. Lena woke up the next morning with her shoulder still hurting, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. The whole night she kept thinking about Cole's voice, the way he had insisted she stop working before she hurt herself more. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, not with anger, not with teasing, but with genuine care. His concern had felt warm, almost protective. She didn't know why her heart had reacted the way it did, but something inside her felt different now. She kept replaying the moment over and over. By the time she stepped outside to help her father with the morning chores, she already sensed something strange in the air. Her father was feeding the chickens, but he kept glancing at her with a puzzled expression. "You feeling all right?" he asked. "Yes, I'm fine," she replied quickly, though she winced when her shoulder moved. Her father narrowed his eyes. "Heard you were at Cole's ranch yesterday. People were talking about it in town last night." Lena froze. "Talking? About what?" "You know how people are," he said, sighing. "Small town. Too much free time. They make stories where there are none. Just be careful, Lena." She nodded, but inside she felt uneasy. She didn't want trouble. She liked Cole, but she didn't want rumors, misunderstandings, or drama. Still, the town had always watched her like she was different, so she wasn't surprised. She hoped it would all fade away by the afternoon, but it didn't. When she went to the general store to buy medicine for her shoulder, 3 women were standing at the counter, whispering. As soon as they saw her, they stopped talking and looked at her as if she had done something shocking. Lena avoided their eyes and continued searching for the medicine she needed. One of the women stepped closer and said with forced sweetness, "How's your shoulder, dear? Heard you had a little accident at Cole's place. You should be more careful around him." Lena felt her face warm with embarrassment and frustration. She replied softly, "Cole didn't do anything wrong. He helped me, that's all." The woman leaned in, lowering her voice. "I know you're a nice girl. Just don't get too close." Lena didn't answer. She paid for the medicine and left as fast as she could. Once she was outside, she took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She didn't want to believe any of the rumors. She didn't think Cole was dangerous or strange. If anything, she thought he was just misunderstood. But the town was getting restless, and she didn't know why. Later that afternoon, Lena went to the barn to check on the animals. Her shoulder ached with every movement, but she worked slowly. While cleaning the stalls, she heard footsteps behind her. Before she could turn around, someone gently touched her arm. She spun around quickly, only to find Cole standing there with a small paper bag in his hand. She hadn't expected to see him, and for a moment, her breath caught. "I brought something for your shoulder," Cole said quietly. "Herbal cream. Works better than the store stuff." She stared at him in surprise. "You came all the way here just for that?" He shrugged slightly. "You were in pain yesterday. I wanted to make sure you're okay." Her heartbeat quickened. His face was calm, but there was something deeply sincere in his eyes. She didn't know what to say. Before she could respond, her father walked in, wiping his hands on a cloth. His eyes immediately noticed Cole standing close to Lena. His expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "Cole," her father said slowly, "everything all right?" "Yes, sir," Cole replied respectfully. "Just bringing something for Lena's shoulder. She strained it yesterday." Lena watched the 2 men carefully. Her father didn't dislike Cole, but he seemed cautious. He stared at Cole a few seconds longer before nodding. "Thank you. That's kind of you." Cole nodded politely. Then he looked back at Lena. "If you need help, or someone to check in on you, let me know." That simple offer felt heavier than his words. She nodded quietly, and Cole turned to leave. But as he walked out of the barn, Lena saw 3 young men from the town standing far off, watching. They whispered among themselves and smirked. She felt her stomach twist. She knew exactly what this looked like to them, like Cole and her were hiding something. And in this town, people always assume the worst. That evening, Lena's father sat with her at the dinner table. He looked thoughtful, troubled even. "Lena," he said softly, "I know you're grown. I know you can decide for yourself. But I want you to be careful. The town has been uneasy lately. People are saying strange things about Cole." She frowned. "Why? He hasn't done anything wrong." Her father hesitated before answering. "Some of the ranchers say they've seen him awake at odd hours, wandering the fields with lanterns. Others say he disappears for days and doesn't tell anyone where he goes. A few think he's hiding something." Lena shook her head. "That's just gossip. He's private, that's all. And even if he has his secrets, doesn't everyone?" Her father didn't argue. He simply sighed. The next morning, Lena decided she wouldn't let the rumors scare her. She needed to see Cole again. Not because of the gossip, but because she wanted to understand him better. Something about him felt important. And she couldn't ignore that feeling. She walked to his ranch, taking slow steps so she wouldn't aggravate her shoulder. When she reached the gate, she saw Cole carrying a hay bale toward the barn. He stopped when he saw her and gave a small, warm smile. "You shouldn't be carrying anything heavy," he said gently. "Your shoulder." "I'm okay," she interrupted. "I came to talk." He nodded and set the hay down. "All right." They walked together toward the corral, and she noticed the quiet beauty of the ranch, the soft wind, the golden grass, the distant hills. It felt peaceful, almost untouched by the world. "Cole," she said softly. "People in town. They're talking. A lot." Cole stopped walking. His jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't look surprised. "They always have." "Why?" she asked. "Why do they think you're dangerous?" He took a slow breath. "Because they don't understand me. And because I don't explain myself to them." "But why don't you?" she asked gently. He looked at the fields for a moment before answering. "Sometimes explaining doesn't make things better. Sometimes it only makes people judge more." Lena felt a quiet sadness in his voice. She could tell he had been hurt by people before. She wanted to ask more, but she didn't want to push him. Suddenly, a loud voice interrupted the moment. "Hey, Cole." They turned to see one of the town's ranchers riding up on horseback. His face was tense, almost angry. "You need to come with me," he shouted. "There's something you need to see at the North Ridge." Cole's expression changed instantly. He grabbed his hat and walked toward the rider. "What happened?" he asked. "Tracks," the rider said. "Deep ones. Something big passed through the fields last night. Bigger than any animal we've seen around here." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Where?" "Near the woods. You'll want to see it yourself." Lena watched as Cole climbed onto his horse. All seriousness now. "Go home," he told her softly. "Stay safe." Before she could ask anything else, he rode off with the rancher, disappearing into the hills. Lena stood there alone, her heart pounding with worry. She didn't know what they had found. She didn't know what it meant, but she felt one thing with certainty. Something was happening on Cole's ranch, something the town had been afraid of for a long time, and she had just stepped into the middle of it. Lena could not calm down after Cole rode away. She stood near the fence for a long time, watching the empty hills, hoping he would return quickly. But deep inside, she knew something serious was happening. The rancher who came for Cole had looked worried, almost scared, and the mention of something big moving across the ridge made her uneasy. She walked back toward town slowly, her thoughts heavy. The wind was cold, brushing against her face, but she barely noticed it. She kept replaying Cole's last words, "Go home, stay safe." His tone had been firm, protective, almost urgent. It wasn't like him to speak so strongly unless the situation was dangerous. By the time she reached home, her father had already heard the news. He was standing outside the house, waiting for her. When he saw her alone, he let out a relieved breath. "Where's Cole?" he asked quickly. "He rode toward the North Ridge with a rancher. she replied. They found tracks. Her father's eyes widened. Tracks? What kind? They said something big passed through last night. Her father looked away, his jaw tightening. He didn't say anything, but Lena could tell he was hiding something. She stepped closer. Dad? Do you know something about this? He hesitated for a long moment before speaking softly. People around here have been hearing strange noises at night for weeks. Low sounds. Heavy footsteps. Some thought it was a bear. Others thought it was something else. Something else? Lena repeated. Her father sighed deeply. You know how towns get when they're scared. They invent stories. Some say it's a wild animal. Some say it's a dangerous person hiding in the woods. And some blame Cole. Lena's heart tightened. But why him? Her father looked at her carefully. Because he's new. Because he's quiet. Because he keeps to himself. People fear what they don't understand. Lena shook her head slowly. It's not fair. No, her father agreed. But that's how people are. All afternoon, Lena couldn't rest. She kept watching the road, hoping Cole would appear. But the sun slowly sank behind the hills, and there was still no sign of him. Her worry grew heavier with each passing hour. After dinner, she stepped outside again. The night was calm, but the silence felt strange, too deep, too still. The animals in the barn were restless. Several times, she saw the horses lift their heads as if they heard something far away. She couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed a lantern, wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, and walked toward Cole's ranch. Her father called out to her. Where are you going? I need to make sure he's all right, she said quietly. Her father hesitated, but he saw the fear and determination in her eyes. Finally, he nodded slowly. Stay on the main road. And don't go near the woods, Lena promised, though she wasn't sure she could keep that promise if she had to choose. The moon was bright that night, casting silver light across the fields. As she walked, she heard the wind rustling through the grass and the distant cry of a night bird. The world felt both peaceful and tense at the same time, as if something was watching from the darkness. When she reached Cole's ranch, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The gate was open, swaying slightly in the wind. The horses in the corral were unsettled, pacing back and forth. Cole? She called softly. Are you here? There was no answer. Her lantern light glowed softly as she walked toward the barn. Halfway there, she heard a faint sound like footsteps on gravel. She turned quickly. A shadow moved near the shed. Her heart pounded. She raised the lantern. Who's there? A familiar voice replied. Lena? She gasped in relief. Cole stepped out from the darkness, dusty and tired. His clothes marked with dirt and broken grass. His hat was in his hand, and his face looked more serious than she had ever seen. Cole, she said breathlessly, walking toward him. Are you all right? I was so worried. He stopped in front of her, his eyes softening slightly. You shouldn't be out here this late. I couldn't stay home, she admitted. What happened? Where did you go? What did you find? Cole looked over his shoulder toward the north ridge, then back at her. He hesitated for several seconds, as if deciding how much he should tell her. We found the tracks, he said finally. They weren't from any animal I've seen before. The marks were deep, too deep, and far apart, like whatever it was had long strides. Lena swallowed. Does the town know? No, Cole replied. And it's better that way. People panic too easily. She looked at him closely. You look shaken. Did something else happen? Cole's jaw tightened again. He glanced toward the woods. The silence between them stretched, heavy and uneasy. At last, he spoke. I followed the tracks alone for a while. They led toward the forest. And then, they stopped. Stopped? Lena whispered. Yes, Cole said quietly, as if whatever made them suddenly disappeared. A cold chill ran through Lena. Disappeared how? Into the trees? No, Cole said softly. There were no more footprints. It was like something lifted off the ground. She stared at him in confusion and fear. Like a bird? Or, no, he said. Not like anything we know. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind moved through the grass, making it whisper faintly. The lantern light flickered in her hand. Then Lena asked the question she had been afraid to ask since morning. Cole, is the town right? Is something dangerous living out there? Cole looked at her long and hard. His expression wasn't angry, but it was serious, in a way that made her chest tighten. There's something out there, he said at last. But I don't know what. Not yet. Her breath caught. And the town? They think you're involved? Cole nodded slowly. They always have. Since the first night the noises started. But why? Lena asked helplessly. Why would they blame you of all people? A soft, sad smile touched his lips. Because they don't trust strangers. Because I keep too many things to myself. Because I walk the woods at night sometimes. And because people are afraid of what they do not understand. But you're not dangerous, she said firmly. Cole looked away. Not in the way they think. But I have secrets, Lena. Things I've never told anyone in this town. Not in the way they think. Not in the way they think. Not in the way they think. Lena felt her heart beat faster. Secrets? Before Cole could answer, the horses suddenly neighed loudly, almost panicked. Lena and Cole both turned sharply toward the corral. The animals were backed against the far fence, their eyes wide, their bodies trembling. Cole moved in front of Lena instinctively. Stay behind me. Her hands shook as she held the lantern higher. The night air grew still, too still. Then, from the edge of the woods, a low, distant sound echoed across the field. It was not an animal growl. It wasn't a human voice. It was something in between. Deep, heavy, and unsettling. Lena's blood ran cold. She grabbed Cole's arm without thinking. What was that? She whispered. Cole's voice was low. The same sound people have been hearing at night. The sound echoed again, closer now. The trees at the forest edge swayed as if something large was moving between them. Cole took a step forward. Stay here, Lena. No, she whispered urgently. You can't go out there alone. Cole didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the dark tree line. This is my land, he said quietly. And if something is out there, I need to know what. Lena held his arm tighter. Please, don't leave me here. He hesitated. The sound echoed a third time, louder, deeper, closer. The horses thrashed wildly. Cole finally turned to her, his face lit by the lantern glow. Come with me, he said softly. But stay close. Don't let go of my hand. She nodded, her heart racing. Cole took her hand firmly, and together they walked toward the dark edge of the field, toward the place where the unknown waited for them. Hidden in the shadows of the trees, they didn't know what they were about to face. All they knew was that something enormous, silent, and mysterious was watching them, and the next step they took would change everything. Lena's hand trembled inside Cole's, but she didn't let go. Cole held the lantern with his other hand, raising it just enough to light the path ahead. The glow stretched across the field like a thin ribbon of gold. But beyond that, light was only darkness, thick, cold, and silent, except for the strange sound that had echoed moments before. Each step they took felt heavier than the last. The grass beneath their feet whispered as they moved closer to the line where the open field met the forest. The trees stood tall and dark, their branches forming twisted shadows that looked alive in the dim light. Cole stopped a few feet away from the first row of trees. Lena stood beside him, trying to steady her breathing. She felt Cole's grip tighten slightly, as if he were afraid she might run back. But Lena wasn't going anywhere. She had come this far, and she couldn't let him face the unknown alone. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the sound came again. A deep, low vibration rolled across the ground like distant thunder. It wasn't loud, but it felt heavy enough to shake her bones. Lena instinctively moved closer to Cole. He shifted slightly in front of her, shielding her with his body. The trees rustled again. Cole lifted the lantern higher, trying to catch a glimpse of what was moving in the darkness. Don't speak, he whispered softly. Lena nodded, though her throat was too tight to speak anyway. A shadow moved behind the trees. It was big, bigger than any animal she had ever seen. She couldn't tell its shape, only that it was huge and slow, as if it moved with purpose rather than fear. The lantern light flickered as the wind picked up. The horses back at the corral cried out again, restless and frightened. "What is it?" Lena whispered finally, unable to keep her fear buried any longer. Cole didn't answer right away. His eyes narrowed, searching the darkness. Then he took a careful step forward. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But it's not an animal from around here." The shadow moved again, and this time Lena thought she saw something tall, dark, and oddly shaped. But the moment she blinked, it vanished. She stepped back, her heart pounding so hard she felt it in her ears. "Cole," she whispered urgently. "Maybe we should go back. We don't know what this is." Cole finally turned to her. His face looked pale in the lantern light, but his eyes were steady. "If we don't face it tonight, the town will only get more scared," he said. "And they'll blame me even more. I can't let that happen." Lena lowered her eyes. She knew he was right. The town was already suspicious of him. If the creature, or whatever it was, kept causing fear, Cole would become the target again. People feared what they didn't understand. And Cole had always been the misunderstood one. "Then I'm staying with you," she said firmly. Cole opened his mouth to argue, but Lena shook her head before he could speak. "I won't leave you alone," she said again. He looked at her for a long moment, surprised, grateful, and worried all at once, then he nodded. "Stay close," he said softly. Another sound echoed from the forest. But this one was different. It wasn't deep or threatening. It was almost weak, like a cry. A painful cry. Lena's eyes widened. That sounded like something hurt. Cole looked at her, then back toward the trees. The sound repeated, softer this time. Without waiting, Cole stepped into the forest. Lena followed closely, the lantern light swaying as they walked through the tall trees. The forest floor was thick with fallen leaves, and each step made a soft, crunching sound. The air inside the woods felt colder, heavier, as if it carried the weight of something unseen. They moved deeper until the trees thinned slightly, and a small clearing appeared. In the center of it, the moonlight spilled down like silver water. Then Lena saw it. Something large lay on the ground, partly hidden by branches. It was covered in thick, dark fur, and had long limbs stretched awkwardly, as if it had fallen and couldn't get up. Lena's breath caught in her throat. It looked like an animal, but not like any animal she knew. Cole stepped forward slowly, raising the lantern. The creature lifted its head. Its eyes glowed faintly in the light, not threatening, not wild, just tired and frightened. Lena realized something unexpected. The creature wasn't dangerous. It was wounded. A long gash ran across its side, and dried blood darkened its fur. It breathed heavily, struggling with each breath. Its large chest rose and fell slowly. Lena felt her fear melt into sympathy. "It's hurt," she whispered softly. "Cole, it's hurting." Cole nodded slowly. "That explains the strange sounds. It's been crying out in pain." As they stood there quietly, the creature made a soft, trembling sound, almost like a plea. Lena felt tears sting her eyes. People thought it was something evil, something dangerous. Cole knelt down carefully, keeping a safe distance. "It's just scared," he said gently. "And in pain." Lena crouched beside him. For the first time, the creature didn't flinch at their presence. It seemed too weak to move, but not too weak to understand that they weren't there to harm it. "What should we do?" Lena asked softly. Cole looked at the wound again. "If we leave it here, it won't survive the night." Lena swallowed hard. "Then we can't leave it." Cole glanced at her. "You mean help it?" "Yes," she said with quiet determination. "It didn't hurt anyone. It just scared people because they didn't know what it was." Cole thought for a moment, then nodded. "All right. But we have to be careful." Together, they approached the creature slowly. Lena spoke to it gently, her voice soft and calming. Cole removed his jacket and placed it near the creature's side, almost like a comforting layer. The creature's breathing steadied slightly. "We need to clean the wound," Cole said, "and cover it to stop the bleeding." "I'll go get water," Lena said. "No," Cole replied firmly. "You stay here. I'll go." He stood up and walked toward a nearby stream Lena hadn't noticed earlier. While he was gone, Lena stayed near the creature, whispering softly, hoping her voice would calm it. The creature blinked slowly, its glowing eyes watching her. Its expression, if it had one, seemed almost peaceful now. When Cole returned with water, they cleaned the wound carefully. The creature flinched at first but didn't resist. Cole worked quietly and patiently, and Lena helped however she could. When they finished, the creature let out a long, tired breath and lowered its head gently onto the ground. "We can't move it tonight," Cole said, "but we can stay with it until morning." Lena nodded. "I'll stay." They sat beside the creature for hours, taking turns keeping watch. The night that had once felt full of fear now felt strangely peaceful. The forest was quiet, and the creature slept more deeply as the pain eased. Around dawn, the creature stirred. Slowly, it lifted itself onto its legs. Lena stood up, startled by how tall it really was when it wasn't lying down. But even then, she felt no fear. The creature looked at them one last time, its glowing eyes soft, almost grateful, then turned and walked slowly into the forest, disappearing among the trees. Lena watched it go, feeling something warm grow in her chest. "It wasn't a monster," she whispered. "No," Cole said softly, standing beside her. "Just misunderstood. Like some people in town. And like me." Lena turned to him, her eyes gentle. "They'll never understand unless someone tells them the truth." Cole looked at her thoughtfully. "And you think they'll believe it?" "Maybe not at first," Lena admitted. "But if we tell them together, they might." Cole smiled faintly, the softest smile she had ever seen from him. "We'll face them together then," he said. Lena nodded and slipped her hand into his again. As they walked back toward the ranch, the rising sun cast warm light across the fields. The fear of the night had disappeared, replaced with something new, trust, hope, and the beginning of something neither of them had expected. And for the first time in a long time, Lena felt truly seen, not as the giant bride, not as someone unusual, but as someone who stood beside a man when he needed her, and helped uncover the truth that would change their small town forever.